Hi, everyone. Welcome to this installment of Camelback Confessions. My name is Mckayla Sabito. My pronouns are she and her, and I am the associate for the Search and Align team at Camelback Ventures. You may have noted the term Search and Align in my title. This is Camelback's philosophy for finding and selecting our fellows. And speaking of fellows, we have a former fellow, current alum, Mckayla Warwick, with us here. And I guess today's just the Mckayla show. Mckayla, let me introduce you and your venture. So Mckayla's venture is Collective Climb, a Black-led organization empowering BIPOC teenagers and young adults in West Philadelphia through restorative practices. Their programs and activities support young people in becoming justice-oriented organizers, restorative practitioners, and community leaders, prepare to redress past harms and move their community closer to realizing Black joy, security, and freedom. Well, welcome, Mckayla. I'm so happy you're here and that we get the chance to chat today.
Likewise, I just want to say thank you so much for having me here, and I'm excited to be on the Mckayla show.
Amazing. So I'm going to go ahead and kick us off with a question. I'd love to know more about the moment you found out you were going to be a Camelback Fellow. What was that like for you? What were some feelings that came up?
Yes. Oh my goodness. So I'm just stepping back into that moment and putting it in my head. I remember exactly where I was. I was in my house, but downstairs. And it was up until that point for me a very heavy day. For my cohort, we found out on the same day that we found out about some political decisions being made by the Supreme Court, and I was actually on my way to head to a protest downtown. So I'd kind of had my phone off all day. I was just trying to process internally, process with my community. And then something said, you know what, let me turn my phone back on. The grind doesn't stop. I need to be focused. And I answered, and it was Carolina, who's a part of the Camelback team, letting me know that I had been selected. And my whole body went numb. I mean, for me, this was my first time applying for a fellowship, something that wasn't a grant for the organization, but something that was truly for me to grow as an entrepreneur and to grow as a founder. And that would help the organization as a whole. But it meant so much to be received in that way, to be acknowledged in that way. And so, body was numb. Then I'm making phone calls after. And I couldn't believe it. I was so proud of myself, but I also had that mixed feeling of, is this real? So it was such an incredible honor for me to receive that. And we'll talk about this later, but the fellowship lived up to the emotional experience that I was having. It was warranted.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. That's amazing. And I'm glad that you got a little bit of good news amidst all the turmoil. And then just leading up to that, what was your experience like applying to the fellowship?
Yes. So my experience applying for the fellowship was one that for me was deeply personal. Um, this is interesting, but I wasn't in too much communication with other people. Usually when I'm writing something, I like to have like, hey, can I get an eye on this? Can I get an eye on that? And this was one of those things where I was like, I'm going to be my only proofreader here. I want to be the one who is writing authentically about my story, writing authentically about the story of the organization as I've experienced it. And I would just find time before bed, a couple weeks before it was due, and really just sit there and reflect. And part of that journaling process, part of it was pulling out my laptop at some of my, favorite places in my free time and just being like, this is something I really intentionally want to work on and think about. Because if, you've looked at the application, you'll see the questions do ask you to talk about yourself, to identify who you are, and your proximity to this work, why you do this work. And so it was deeply personal as a summary there. And I actually enjoyed the process. I have to admit, it wasn't like a reluctant kind of thing to write. I just genuinely looked forward to this opportunity to journal. I used my responses as a journal, as a record keeping technique for me.
I'd love to hear that. And I actually remember reading through your application, and it was definitely done with so much intention, and your authenticity definitely showed through. So really appreciate that. And I love that you used it as an opportunity to reflect and think about the work that you do in proximity to your community, and just using it as a way to evaluate and slow down and really, really think about everything that you've done, and you've done so much. To that end, after reflecting on your fellowship experience and reflecting on your application journey, do you have any tips for our potential applicants as they approach this application process?
Great question. So, one tip, I have more than one, but we'll start with one.
All of them. Give me all of them.
One is to really afford yourself the time. Don't think of this as something to put on the back burner with all the other things that you have going on in running your organizations or your ventures. Instead, think of this as it is a priority. It can be a personal priority for you, but it's also something that will really elevate your work. And even, I hope those who are applying, you're going to get it and that way, but even just sitting down and creating the space for you to ask yourself the questions that are being given to you through the prompts is so helpful for kind of formulating your own positions on certain things. It's super helpful in even just becoming a guide for you to have these certain questions responded to, these certain prompts that you can utilize in other spaces as well. So definitely prioritize it. I'll say that. I think another thing is, for me and many of the other fellows that were in my cohort, we have that shared we had a shared approach, and that approach being, be honest. So often when it comes to applying for anything, you're like, I've got to sell myself. I've got to be the perfect version of myself. I have to show that I've been piloted, I've been, approved, like all of these different things. I am it, perfection. Here, I actually went in the opposite way and decided, vulnerability is powerful. For fellowships, you obviously are, if you have everything that you need, maybe you don't need to be in a fellowship. But if you can identify the different points that you could use to strengthen yourself, the different ways that you could be better when you're surrounded by community who can help you identify the supports that you need, then a fellowship probably is something that you're looking for. So approach it with that idea of, I'm going to show them what makes me great. And I'm also going to show the spaces where I want to be great as well, where I may need a little bit of coaching or assistance. We'll get into the 3 C's, I believe. So I won't jump in there. Yeah. So some of my tips.
Amazing. Yeah, I definitely agree with starting the application sooner rather than later. And just what you said about vulnerability is really powerful to me. I love it whenever applicants are able to be super specific about their strengths, but also the areas of development that they're seeking. And so that's just super helpful on our end in understanding where we can best support. And speaking of support, we do have our 5 C's, like you mentioned, Mckayla: capital, coaching, community, connections, and the curriculum that we offer. And based on your experience as a fellow with us, which C was most impactful for you and your venture during the fellowship? And if it's hard to pick one, you can definitely talk about several.
Okay. That was the anxiety there. The anxiety was choosing just one is going to make me, like, later I'm going to be reflecting and I'm going to be like, no, but I needed to say that. So I'm glad I get to say a few of them. So off the top of my head, I really benefited from the areas of community and the areas of coaching. So I'll start with community. I don't want to brag because I know there have been many fellowship like cohorts that have gone through this, but our particular cohort was such a needed space for me. And based on the things that we've shared with each other, I feel like for all of us, we really bonded during Welcome Week. We stayed connected throughout the entirety of the virtual sessions. And when we came back together, it felt like what the title of this says, Camelback Fam. We felt like family. We've cried together, we've laughed together. People are constantly running into each other. There are things that make it hard to keep us separate. And I have loved having a community of people who can, one, relate to this experience with me, and we can debrief, and we can jump into a bunch of different ideas. We can hold each other accountable. We can send affirmations to each other at the end of a rough day, which is a practice that we've engaged in. It means so much. And it means so much to know, even though the work that I do is in a specific city, I'm in Philadelphia, I got people in St. Louis, I got people in Boston, I got people in California who are rooting for me, who are paying attention, and I'm paying attention to the work that they're doing too. So really great in breaking up silos and the sense of isolation in this work of being a founder when it gets difficult. Then the other piece is coaching. My coach, Jose, got to shout you out because you are outstanding, amazing, iconic. But what I loved about the coaching experience here is through the curriculum and the connections, we were able to get very concrete things that we needed for our ventures. And then the community was the piece that spiritually would feed us. For me, the relationship that I identify with my coach was that I needed that spiritual fulfillment too. So sometimes we talked about, okay, this particular concrete thing, try it out, test it out and see if it works, because our coaches are also experts in certain, business-esque, venture-esque things. Excuse my language, but I think you guys get what I'm saying there. But our coaches are also really well-rounded people who, for me, my coach would start the session and, ask me how I was arriving in the space, what was on my heart. We would practice breathing together. We would talk about the emotional hangups I would have with having to make certain decisions, or the anxieties that I would have around, having to transition from one approach to a new approach. And so to have that sort of person that I could go to on a weekly basis to give me that grounding, or to at least give me that space for vulnerability, was so incredible. And I really think if that piece had been removed from the experience, the things I learned from the curriculum, the connections that I made, would have been harder to sustain, because I wouldn't have had the space to reconcile with someone on a one-to-one basis. How does this fit into what I want to do? How does this fit into what my organization needs? How does this fit into the future that I want to create? So those two are the ones I want to shout out.
Awesome. That's so beautiful. And shout out to your coach for creating that experience for you, and to your cohort for still being in touch, I've heard, long after your fellowship has completed. Just as a follow-up question, I'm curious, is there something that your coach has said, or something that you learned in any of the sessions in terms of curriculum, that really stood out to you for you in your venture?
Great question. There are many things. There are many things. So I am just going to take a second to reflect. So one thing that my coach said, I have like a notebook which has like every note from every conversation that we've had because
I
we
love
do
that.
the sessions early, and then it would give me enough time to journal after those sessions, and then try to figure out how I'll take certain things into my own practice from there. But we had a very specific challenge where I was struggling with as the organization expands. How do I stay grounded in doing the work that is crucial to our mission? So, yes, I have to write grants. Yes, I need to find donors. Yes, I need to, sit in different meetings and put myself in these externally facing positions. But what about the interior work of doing restorative circles with young people and families? That's where my heart is. That's what I want to continue to maintain. And then if I don't do that, do I lose myself in the
Mm.
process of doing what I assume I need to do for my role? Or do I get to tap into, but I'm a founder, but this is near and dear to my heart? So my coach helped me reconcile that, helped me reconcile that my connection to this work is going to require me to create my own definitions for what my job description looks like, create my own ability to continue to have this be one of the major loves of my life by not denying myself why I founded this in the first place. So that is one thing that really sticks with me, and means so much because I feared I'm not doing this right if I'm not doing everything that's on an executive director's calendar and that alone. Instead, I have to do that, but I also have to stay committed to what makes this true um, work for me as well. So there's
Yeah,
that.
that's incredible.
Thank you.
And as an entrepreneur, you wear so many different hats, and have to do so many different things. And I love that you still stay grounded and connected to your passion, to the work that you do. That's why you're a founder. And commitment is definitely one of our pillars here at Camelback. And speaking about wearing lots of different hats, what does entrepreneurship mean to you?
Hmm.
I know it's a very general question, but when you hear the word entrepreneurship, reflecting back on your entrepreneurial journey, what does it mean to you? If you could say it in a few words to a few folks.
Yeah. So to me, entrepreneurship is bravery.
Mm.
Entrepreneurship is stepping up despite the difficulties of it, despite the inability to see what is going to come next, but realizing I have to step up for a reason that's important to me or important to my community. So sometimes, you're stepping up because you've got to feed your family. For some people, other people, you're stepping up because you see a need so deep that you can't go to sleep at night without your brain going, there's got to be another way. There's got to be another way. So instead of pushing that to the side, it's about saying, you know what? I'm going to be the one. I'm going to, or I'm going to find other people that believe in the same thing that I do. And we're going to be brave. We're going to figure it out, because just resting in this current state isn't what we're willing to accept. So for me, that's what this has been about. I never had an aspiration to be an entrepreneur, to be quite honest. Like I never said, I'm going to create my own thing. And that's why that wasn't the driving force. Instead, it was the mission. It was seeing young people in our communities needing to heal, needing to heal from intergenerational trauma, needing to heal from traumas experienced at school, needing to heal from their own experiences with the carceral system, both through their families and perhaps with their own, lived experience. And so that is what I wanted to experiment with. That is what I jumped up to say, let's do it. It's going to be difficult, but let's go. So the fact that I work, for myself and for my community has been an added pressure and an added perk, but it wasn't. I didn't start there. I started with
Absolutely.
the mission.
Absolutely. And I think that probably resonates with a lot of other entrepreneurs or people on this call, that courage, that bravery that needs to happen in order to go out and do the thing, to see a problem in your community, see a challenge, and find other people and get to work. And so I think that's incredible. And it's such a privilege to be able to speak with you and other fellows and even all the other applicants who share their stories with us and the challenges of their community and how they're working to address it. So it's definitely inspiring. And I love that definition of entrepreneurship. So you are a part of our Camelback fam. And we call it Camelback Fam because you're a part of this family for life. We don't take the word fam or family lightly here at Camelback. And I'd love to know, what do you hope for our family, our Camelback fam, as we continue to grow?
Wow, that is such a great question. Let's see. One thing that I sincerely hope is that it doesn't become bounded by a moment in time. So the same way that the cohort I'm a part of is so closely connected, we're engaging with each other on a weekly basis as a group. Some people might, message each other daily and lean in that way. But as a group, we're constantly connected. And I just hope that as time expands, that gets to continue, that level of proximity to each other, that level of connectedness. And that's one thing. I also think the spirit of the culture that I was invited into is one of great collaboration and one of great transparency. So I hope that new fellows that come can also lean into that and realize this isn't the space where you have to be guarded. This isn't the space where you have to lean into distrust. And instead, everyone here is here because they want to be a part of this family. This is a chosen family. This is a nurturing family. So hopefully that gets to continue as the direction of the value, of a value that is really set and one that everyone can lean into. And that might be my two major wishes. One random one is with our cohort. I keep bragging about our cohort, so my bad. But we're already planning, different trips to be able to go see what the work looks like for other people, and also to get to know that city, get to know the city that is so crucial and important to each of these different founders. So we're planning our tour, and I do think that is really beautiful to be able to get to know the work of your fellow Camelback fam in an intimate way in that way. So, yeah.
Absolutely. And I think that also speaks to you and the rest of the folks in your cohort, because really what I've heard from a lot of alum is that the cohort experience is what you make of it. We do our best on the Camelback side to create an environment where people feel safe and encourage collaboration. But I think absolutely your cohort, just to brag about it even more, took it to the next level for sure. And just following up with each other and checking in on each other and really supporting each other 110% the way you all do. I think that's inspiring, and definitely something that is self-motivated. We didn't do that. We tried to create the conditions for it, but you all definitely took it to the next level. So definitely applaud you all. Well, Mckayla, yes, did you have something else to say?
I was just going to jump in and say, future fellows, there is a beauty in having a welcome week with each other. So I know work is calling, work is constantly going to call. But if when you're there, you can truly lean into everything that is offered in terms of programming. And then in your free time, of course, rest and recharge, but lean into social activities. Lean into, hey, I'm going to go to breakfast a little bit earlier and I'm going to sit beside someone else and we're going to get to know each other and we're going to talk deeply, because it literally started on the first day. That commitment to saying, we want to know who's here. We want to share our stories with each other. We're in this beautiful place together for a couple of days. Let's see what can happen is, I think, what made all the difference.
Absolutely. And that's fantastic advice. Do you have any last minute words of wisdom to share for all of our applicants who may be tuning in today about the application, about this application period? And I know some of the feelings that come up during the application.
I am going to say a simple invitation. I love that Camelback provides all of these different webinars and, confessional spaces. There's also a lot of robust information on the website. Engage with those materials. They contain so many gems. And also look at the folks who are behind a part of making these things come to fruition. Find us on LinkedIn, find us on Instagram, and don't be afraid to say, hi, I have a question. I'll invite myself to that position and say, if you want to talk more, if you want, a couple minutes of my time, I'd love to make myself available, because this is such an incredible opportunity. And I would hope that instead of something stopping you from trying it out, that you could lean fully into it. And if you need reinforcements, hi. Nice to meet you.
I love that offer. And I'm sure folks listening in appreciate it as well. Just also want to say that you can reach out to me as well, Mckayla at CamelbackVentures.org. Reach out to any of us. Definitely thank you for shouting out all the resources on our website. We have plenty. We have an eligibility quiz y'all can take if you're wondering whether or not you and your venture are a good fit for the application and fellowship program. I just want to say thank you so much, Mckayla, for your wisdom, for your insights, for your stories, your authenticity. You're just such a gem, and we appreciate you and everything that you've contributed to your cohort and to Camelback. For everyone listening in, our application runs from March 1st to March 20th, so you still have time. If everything we talked about sounds like it's in alignment with you and your venture, feel free to check out our website, take our eligibility quiz, find some additional resources like Mckayla said, and submit your application. We're looking forward to meeting you all and hearing your stories. And thank you again, Mckayla, for being here today.
Thank you, Mckayla. Really appreciate it.